Neverness To Everness, or NTE, is a game that I honestly didn't have much hype or excitement for. There's a sea of open world gacha games, and I initially didn't see it having that much that's all that unique. Well, after trying this recent beta, I was actually pretty blown away by some of the changes they've made. Now, this is a sponsored video, but I did ask them to allow me to say an honest review about what's good and bad with the game, and there's definitely a few things that really need some improvement before launch. Now, the core of the game is trying to go for a lifestyle simulator with minigames with SCP anomalies that you have to contain in a big open city. It's sort of like a mixture of some of these open world gacha games that you may have heard of before, with sort of GTA elements. You can, for instance, buy a house, you can race cars, you can even do power washing simulator type minigames and go to prison. But at the same time, it does have 4 characters that you swap between. You do combat with all sorts of enemies, including boss battles. You have special abilities, including a basic attack, skill, ultimate, and swap attacks as well. There's a whole gearing system, so it has a lot of the familiar elements you may have seen in a lot of these other kinds of games. But it does have a lot that makes it special. First, let's talk about the anomalies. Now, anomalies in this game are pretty interesting because you have this whole guide right here of all of these different encounters that you can possibly find on the map. When you click on them, it actually shows you exactly where to go to encounter them, although it would be nice if there was more of a random type of thing that you could sometimes just find rather than going out of your way to search for them. However, what's so interesting about them is they're actually very unique special encounters. Some of them are boss battles or just regular fights, but a lot of them are unique things you're not going to see in a lot of other games. For instance, one of them I thought was a boss battle. Well, it turned out it was actually a horror game where I'm running away from a monster in an abandoned hospital trying to find keys, hide from it, open doors, and solve puzzles to be able to escape the hospital, and there's multiple different endings you can get that change what happens at the end of it. I thought that was unbelievably crazy. There's an entire anomaly where you actually change the perspective to try and escape this blueprint that's gone haywire by an anomaly, and you continually try and climb up this tower by changing all of the perspectives over and over, which is very different. There's this whole set of puzzles that you can find in the game that all rely on being at the school at nighttime where there's no students or anything, and now there's all these creepy mannequins all over the place, and you have to solve tons of puzzles in this place to slowly recruit the mannequins. There's so many others like this that it's actually pretty amazing that they've made so many unique puzzles and events that feel different from one another that you can actually encounter in this city. And what's also interesting is some of the boss battles are really cool too. You go and encounter them and they might have a cool cutscene at the beginning, and some of the mechanics might even be pretty unique, such as one of the bosses that essentially makes it where it's a rhythm game and you have to be attacking or dodging or jumping on command with the boss to be able to actually survive or damage it. Now, I think that these anomalies are probably one of the strongest elements of this game and one of the parts that actually really makes it feel different, because when you go into them, you actually don't know what you're going to encounter. Some of them feel so wildly different from one another that you'll actually be shocked that it's in the same game. And this is one of the things that really drew me in, because so many of these games, I feel like the exploration is pointless. You go around, you grab the chests, and that's it. You don't really discover anything that feels different or unique. The only reason most people like to discover is to either get upgrade materials for their characters or to open chests, but you don't really feel like you got anything special out of going to many areas. But with these anomaly commissions, I feel as though I was actually getting unique experiences that I really enjoyed. So I think this is one of the strongest things of the game by far, and it's not even close. Also, the atmosphere of some of the areas is very interesting too. They actually have some very creepy segments of the game that you honestly feel a little bit unnerved in. And this is something that you don't really see either, because some people might feel uncomfortable, and most of these kinds of gacha games want to be encompassing every possible player you could ever get in the game. So I found that very cool too. There's so many surreal elements to the game of things twisting or just weird places you go to, and it really takes a lot of imagination to make that kind of stuff, so it was something I actually really respected. That said, sometimes I would go a little bit far and I might get a little bit motion sick with how crazy it was really going, but overall, really cool. Also, some of the puzzles in this game are absolutely crazy. Now, I do love having difficult puzzles in a game because so many games have the most baby easy things I've ever seen in my life, but some of the puzzles in this game are just absolutely ridiculous. Like, there was a section where I had to remember a piano tune and then play it on the piano multiple times, and I don't have the best ear for music, so I don't see any way I was really supposed to be able to solve this. Some of the puzzles also took a lot of brain work, where you either need to do multiple puzzles first to be able to solve the subsequent one, or you just have to know to go to certain places or interact with certain things, and it was actually very difficult. I could see many people getting stuck in some of these puzzles, but at the same time, that made it really cool. So I hope they don't nerf all of these puzzles, but maybe just make some tiny little hints towards what you're supposed to do or how you're supposed to approach them. Also, there was one puzzle where you had a single-use item that it gave you, and if you didn't use it perfectly, then you just lost and you can never solve the puzzle. So I found that one to be absolutely crazy, and they're definitely gonna need to fix that before release, or I can imagine hundreds of threads talking about how BS that is. Next, let's talk about the characters. I would say the characters are overall decently designed. Not my favorite I've ever seen. Some of them look better than others. Here, for example, is probably one of my favorite characters. Her name is Daffodil, which is a bit of a weird name for a character that looks like this, but all the same, so it looks great. This is the main character, and one thing I definitely want to show off is outfits. This game is going hard with the outfits. They are making a lot of outfits, and this is just the beta, so I'm sure they're gonna add a lot more when the game releases, but a lot of the skins seem to actually also be free. Some of them are paid, some of them are from certain events or the gacha, and then some of them you can just buy with in-game money, which I think is great. For instance, this character right here is actually the first banner unit in the game, the first limited, and so this is her basic skin. This costs money. It actually is very obtainable. I could actually buy it right now as we speak. This is a gacha skin, which I'll talk about in just a moment, and then this is one that actually costs real money. It seems like they're trying to really go down the skin avenue, which I think is great, because if you make a lot more money off of skins, then you can be a little bit more generous with the gacha, which leads me to the next segment. Let's talk about the gacha in this game, because this is a really big step forward, I would say, in current day. So there's two types of banners. There's the limited banner and there's a standard banner. When you first start the game, you actually get a starter banner that only takes 50 pulls to be able to get a random character. Except it isn't random, and it actually just lets you choose the character that you want from the standard pool. Now, I don't know if it's going to be the exact same when the game actually releases, but in the beta, it just lets you choose who you want, so that's how I chose Daffodil, and I was very happy with that. So, let's look at this gacha. Well, this is how it looks. It's a giant Monopoly game board that you roll on. Pretty weird. It does use normal gacha rules and rates, so it's a 1% chance for an SSR character, but there's some other special things. For instance, if you land on this space, you just get the SSR character. So you have to land right here, which takes you on this bridge, and then if you landed on this space, you would just get them. This also right here is actually a skin for your car, because if you look right here, they actually have an extra sort of spark pity system in the game. After 50 pulls, you get a glider. After 120, you get a car wrap, and after 200, you just get this skin. Now, apparently how this works also is this doesn't carry over to the next banner, but it does carry over to a rerun of this character's banner. So theoretically, you could wait for a future banner to try and get some of these things if you wanted them in the future, if you were trying to pull for this character. Now, the rates for these are pretty low. For instance, this car is a 0.3% chance of getting this skin, and this skin right here is also a 0.3%. So, obviously not the most likely for you to get them, but there's still a chance. So, the character being 1% and these being 0.6 combined leads you to have a pretty alright chance of getting something you might want off the board, at least by today's standards, right? But I think it's a really good call, because it makes it so people who really want to spend money can go that extra mile, and then also there's the hope that maybe you get lucky and you just happen to get it, which makes it more exciting. And did I forget to mention, there is no 50-50 in this gacha system. It is 90 pulls, you get the character, that's it. There's no tricks or anything to it, which is amazing. So not only can you ride around this board, get some cool things, you can even get pull refunds and stuff like that, you can get the skins, but it's really simple to get characters in the game. I would say this is an enormous step forward for gachas, because the 50-50 system, it just sucks, honestly. So I think this is really good that they did this. Now, let's talk about the weapon banner, because overall I'm not a fan of weapon banners in general. Fun to pull for characters, it's usually not fun to pull for the weapons. But how does this weapon banner go? Well, it's not my favorite. This is a 2575, which sounds very similar to another game that recently released, doesn't it? Now, the pull rates are 3% to be able to get an S rank, and I was actually getting a lot of them. It seems like you get a decent amount of these keys to be able to pull with as well, but that said, I still think it's a bit disappointing that the pull rate is so low. I would rather have the character be 100% and the weapon not be, but you know what's even better? Just having the weapon and the character be both 100%. That would be ideal. That said, I still think it's not the worst I've ever seen, but I would like for this pull system to remove that 75-25, at least make it a 50-50 if you're really gonna go for that. I suppose we'll see. It really comes down to how many overall pulls you actually get in the game. Because you can make the worst pity system of all time, but if you give so many pulls, well, then it doesn't really matter. So hopefully when the game comes out, it'll be relatively generous on that, especially since they're going in on the skins. So let's really hope they go that way. Going along with the gacha system, let's also add in this. Well, the dupe system. How are the dupes in this game? Probably one of the best I've ever seen in any game, and let me explain why. So how this works is you activate a dupe like this, and you know, I could also activate a second one right now if I want to. Now, how it works in almost every single game ever is this dupe does a specific ability. This dupe does a specific ability. Not in this game. You can change what the dupes do. You can select which dupe you want. You see these in the top right? So right now I'm using the first dupe. Well, you know what? I'd rather have the sixth dupe. Now I have that activated. Oh, this one is using the second dupe? I'd rather have the fourth dupe. I'll use this one instead. Absolutely amazing. You get to choose the exact dupe that you want to use on the character, and you can change it whenever you want. That's amazing. We've never seen this in any kind of game. You can even deactivate them if you want to, which I think is amazing too. So I think this is almost revolutionary in a way when it comes to dupes. It also incentivizes them to not make one dupe be unbelievably broken, because usually it's the final dupe for every character in any of these kinds of gacha games that's so broken and powerful that you really want. Well, they can't really do that. They need to make them a little bit more balanced in some ways. Otherwise, everyone just chooses the most OP thing and instantly kills everything just with one dupe, right? So I think that's a really good system. So not only does it seem to be relatively easy to get characters, but the dupes seem pretty simple to get exactly what you want out of them. I think that's a great system overall. Next, let's talk about the music. Music in this game? Kind of banging. It has like every type of music you could kind of want. There's so many different genres. You can unlock a ton of different songs as you go through the game. You can just buy them at shops or from different missions and stuff like that, which I think is a really great system. And you can play them while you're driving around in the game and everything like that. Unfortunately, I don't have most of these songs unlocked, which is a little bit frustrating, but like they even got music like this, which honestly, I'm a huge fan of synthwave, so I was really happy that they actually had this kind of stuff because I think this is a giga banger, bro. It's not bad. They have so many different types of songs too. I think this game's really done well on the music, so hopefully they'll continue to do that because I find a lot of games often will miss when it comes to music. Next, let's talk about the cutscenes. This game has some of the most animated cutscenes I've ever seen, and I would almost argue in some ways over-animated. Now, I do think it's really great having cutscenes that are really active and all over because it actually feels a lot more alive. And so when you see these cutscenes, you feel like you don't have to just look away and waste time waiting for some stupid cutscene to end, but you're actually a little bit more invested. That said, I think some of the cutscenes go a little bit too far and have so much movement and so much randomness that I actually found myself kind of getting almost a little bit dizzy with what was happening, and it was almost felt like, okay, you can just stop a little bit more. I get it. I don't need all of this going all over to be able to show me what's happening. It's going a little bit crazy, but they're definitely going for a very anime episode kind of feel with some of the cutscenes where it actually feels sort of like you're watching some little snippet of an anime short or something. Next, let's talk about the combat and the bosses. So, this game uses the standard 4-person team. You can swap between the characters mid-combat. You only have one person out on the field at the same time. You have the basic attack, you have the skill, you have the ultimate, and you also have the swap to other character attack. Sounds familiar? Probably. Overall, I would say it feels relatively good. There's a little bit of stiffness sometimes in the combat, which can feel a little bit off, but I think the game feels very responsive and nice in other ways. The dodge feels really good. You feel rewarded when you're dodging. You get to spam the dodge attack, which I think is great. Some of the sounds and crunches and the hit stop can feel really good with some characters. Others might need a little bit more work in that regard. Now, let's talk quickly about how team building works in this game too, because it's a little bit strange, I found. Normally in a lot of these games, you want to team build around, let's say, specific elements or characters swap to certain things. So how it works in this game is when you have certain elements, you just get certain bonuses for characters, and you unlock the character's passive that goes with that. So it's a little bit different than I've seen in other games where you just need a specific element on the team and then activate. So if you have light and wind elements on your team, now these can be activated and you get this, which is a very different system in some ways, that it's just a specific element is needed on your team. It doesn't even matter what that character does. They just need to be there, and now you have access to this. So this seems to be how the team building works. You have to keep in mind though, that even though combat in this game exists, it's not exactly the core feature of what the game's trying to do. Now, some of the bosses are actually pretty well designed. Some of them can be a really cool spectacle. Maybe they have some cool attacks or phases. There's some very interesting things going on with them. And overall, I actually really enjoyed doing a lot of the combat and fights. But the only problem is I felt like I was just rolling over most of them and they were way too easy. So I'd definitely hope that they have some more difficult ones. And there is a harder version of some of the bosses, which I'm excited to later do when the game releases. But that said, I hope that we'll be able to have some good encounters that actually feel like you might have to struggle sometimes to be able to beat them. Since this game is going for many unique and different things, I would like to see that too if possible. Next, let's talk about some of the mini games and features around the town. They've got a lot of different things. You can buy different houses, you can invite some of your friends to those places as well. You can decorate them by putting like sofas and beds and random knickknacks all over the place that adds to a score. You can buy coffee shops and other stores like that and start to run them with some of your characters giving you extra bonuses like the amount of money you make, and you can deliver more resources to the place so they can make better things as well. It's also a bunch of passive income that you get to slowly become a billionaire in this game. I think that can be pretty fun. They also have things such as mahjong in the game, street racing, and these are all little encounters that you can do to build up your overall tycoon level, which I think could be pretty fun. Did I mention they also have fishing? A lot of people really love fishing in every single game, so I guess you can't have a lifestyle kind of game without it. Overall, I think all these little mini games are fun. It sort of makes me think of playing something such as a Yakuza game with the main story and all these other little side things that you get to do around the city. Now, I didn't really get to do that much multiplayer, but the game does have some multiplayer. I would really like to see the game expand a bit more upon it though, because I do think that a game like this really lends itself to being able to do as much as possible with other players, whether it be racing or playing games with them, or even doing some of the fights with them. I think it would be really great to even do some of the Anomalies special missions with other players, because it could be a really enjoyable experience. We'll see how they actually incorporate it more, but I think there's not many gacha games that really do anything with other players other than they can just exist in your world. It would be nice if there was more real interactions that you could do with them. Now let's talk about some of the biggest negatives of the game. One of the biggest is definitely the performance. This game is made on Unreal Engine, and you know what that means. Very difficult to optimize. Not only is it difficult to optimize, but this game needs a lot of it. Not only did I find multiple freezes and crashes, but I definitely think there's some form of a memory leak. There was lots of lag in certain areas, especially when it would go to day to night cycles in certain places. If there were too many pedestrians around, I would definitely lose a lot. It needs some big fixes in that regard. They do have time, so I'm hoping that they fix it before it comes out, but optimization is so important because I don't see how people are going to play the game on phone when it releases, which is a big audience for gacha games, even if I'm not going to be playing it. But my computer also uses a 4090 and a 7800X 3D, so I shouldn't really be getting all of these issues if I'm running at even near perfect performance. It seems a bit ridiculous to get so much lag, so they definitely have to work on that. Next, let's talk about a possible negative or possible plus, depending on how you look at it. The gearing system in this game is one of the most interesting things I've ever seen. It's very similar to another game called Reverse 1999. So essentially you get a main console ability, which is this little circle right here, and then you get modules, and it's like Tetris. So you get all these different little blocks, and if you look right here, they all have different stats stats. Every single one rolls different stats. So obviously you're gonna want good ones. Let's say crit rate, crit damage, attack. That's how most of these games go. And you slot them into all these different spots. I think a lot of players are gonna have issues just understanding how to optimize this and actually get a good build. You'll also notice on the top left, this says increases chaos damage bonus by 10% for each type 3 module. Every character has a different bonus like that, using type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, for instance, right? These are type 3 modules, the ones with 3 blocks. So every time you slot one of these in, she gets a 10% damage boost. So you want to use as many of those as possible. But at the same time, if you look right here, this is the set bonus. To get this set bonus, you need a 2 block that's going upwards, a 3 block that's going to the side, this specific trio block, and then a Z block. And so you have to slot all that in and then also try to fit as many type 3 blocks to get that bonus damage. I think this is going to be very difficult for a lot of players to be able to do. I think the idea is actually really cool. It's actually a very smart concept, but I think the reality of it is a lot of players are going to have issues being able to create a build and then even just slot the blocks together. And then what if you get a god piece, but it's just a crappy shape? What do? Are they going to have modifiers to be able to do that? Because you also can't twist the block in any sort of way. So maybe an item that lets you twist it or reform the block, so a 3 piece could become a straight piece or it could become a different shape. I'm not really sure, but I really admire the idea. I just think maybe the implementation will be a bit hard for a lot of players, since gearing is usually a sore spot for many. It might sound like I'm glazing a lot of parts of this game. That's because I am, because I actually had so much enjoyment with this beta that I really didn't expect. I honestly had my expectations fairly low, so when I played it, I was genuinely shocked by the amount of fun I was having and all the cool things I was able to do. I hope it's okay to just glaze the game, because they're doing a really good job in a lot of areas. All in all, I actually think that Neverness to Everness is a pretty damn good looking game. I can't stress this enough. I was not excited for this game that much. I thought it looked okay, but not really anything special. But after playing a lot of this beta, I'm actually very invested in it. It does so many encounters and different things than I've seen in other games. It feels like it's actually trying to be different. And sure, it has many similar elements to a lot of these other games. That's totally fair to say. But at the same time, you have to admire the fact that they're actually willing to go outside of the norm and try some different things that you haven't really seen. The anomalies, I think some of them are honestly genius, and they really incentivize people to wanting to explore around the world and find all of these cool different encounters. I think the gearing system, even though it may be a little bit much, is a very interesting concept, and I admire the fact that they're actually willing to try that. Now, how will this game do on release? I'm not sure, but I actually really hope that it's given a chance. I think a lot of people don't really know how much this game actually has in it and haven't really given it much of a chance, including me before I tried it. So I hope this game is given an opportunity by players and they're actually willing to see what it has to offer, because I think some of them might be really pleasantly surprised. Anyways, thanks so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you next time.